I'm Erin Lawler Patterson, the Goodness Chick. I'm an international speaker, podcaster, counselor, author, and proud part of the Mental Health News Radio Network. Join me on the journey of empowering you to live life with an overflowing cup rather than an empty one. We look at mental health, self-care, addiction, relationship, and wellness, where we use our challenges to fuel us rather than consume us. All right, today's episode of Goodness Chick Pod, so excited to be able to talk about, because I feel like this is appropriate for so many people listening today, is our edition of Coping Through COVID Back to School edition. There's so many of you that are listening that are educators, that are parents, that are students, that are kind of in the state of, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed, hamster spinning wheel kind of thing. And so today I'm really excited to be able to jump on, have our guest today who is an educator, who is a parent, who is an overall super awesome human being, but I'm going to leave you on the edge right there for a second, because if you dig the Goodness Chick podcast, I would love for you to think about hopping on goodnesschick.com and being a sponsor, whether that's a monthly or that's a one-time thing, whether it's $2 or it's whatever bucks. It is greatly, greatly appreciated for keeping the Goodness Chick mission rocking and rolling, my friends. So today, drum roll, I do not have the music, but just imagine in your mind. For today's guest, I have Renee Collins. I want to say, Renee, thank you for being here today.
Well, thanks for having me, Erin.
So, Renee, our paths first crossed how many years ago? 16 years ago. Back at, we worked at the same school in the same school district. You are a business teacher. You are a parent. And I, having you on the show today, just fully respect you. And as I was sharing with you this with you before the show, I had intended of kind of just rocking this episode out solo, talking about COVID, kind of back to school edition, and you just kept popping in my mind. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you, but somebody who is on the front line, wanted to kind of get your thoughts, because so many people right now, including myself, are struggling with anxiety, the unknown. And I wanted to ask you, kind of like right now, where are you as an educator and where are you as a parent? And that's a massive question to ask you, but like, what's been going through your head?
Okay, so I just, as a teacher, back in March and April, we were like heroes across the country. And everybody's like, oh, we love teachers, what they've been doing. And now we're back to being the villains. So it's like it's a hard like wave to ride, where everybody loves you and then everybody hates you and they don't understand. You get a lot of people who are giving information and their opinions that have never been in the classroom. And I think that's very hard to not get mad at, like where they're like, you need to go back in, everybody else is doing their job, and it's just a whole different dynamic. So where I'm at as a teacher is I would love to be there 5 days a week and see all the students. I think it's very hard for kids to learn virtually for the most part without that interaction. Do I think it's feasible right now? I mean, it's actually quite impossible, because you have to follow the CDC guidelines, and you can't even do that. Like, you can't have kids there 5 days a week, every kid. And as a parent, I don't know, Erin, this is a loaded question. As a parent, I'm really torn, because it was nice to have that time where everything just stopped for a little while and reconnect. And then you see the kids, like, when can we see your friends? Like, when are we going back to school? When is this happening? And because of the unknown and the anxiety and just, you don't know what's happening, everybody's just trying their best to do what's right for their kids. And you look around and you're like, oh, well, that person's doing this or this person's doing that. Why aren't I doing this? Why aren't I doing that? And it just creates the anxiety. And I just think it's a very trying time to be a parent right now, and try to do the right thing for your kids.
I think it's overwhelming. I mean, I have, my guy, we started kindergarten last week. Well, we started kindergarten with me homeschooling. If you were to have asked me like a year ago, like, would you're homeschooling? No. There's so much stress and there's so much unknown. I think every parent right now, and this is what I do want to talk about, it's how important it is to do what's right for your family. Do what's right for your kids, because it's so sticky right now, I believe, to get into the kind of comparison zone where we feel like maybe we're not doing enough, we're falling short, or even for some people like, well, we're doing great, or however you might think. But I believe comparing kicks up our anxiety about a bazillion notches. Do you find yourself struggling with that at all?
All right, so with the comparing, I don't know if I'm just comparing or if people are like, well, this is what we're doing. I'm like, I didn't think of that. And so then you have all these different options, and you're like, well, they're sending their kids back, and then my kid's going to miss out on that opportunity of seeing their friends, and I don't know how much socialization they're actually getting. But the days that they're not going, I'm like, I know my one child doesn't learn well in front of the computer, so then I'm like, that's not good for him. Do I send one? And I don't say comparing as I'm looking at what other people are doing, and they seem so confident in what their answers are, and I'm like wavering over here, like, what am I doing? Yeah. What do I do?
But it's also what maybe they're confident, and that's great. But I think maybe you don't really know what's behind the scenes, because I would say most people that I speak with, and not that I know a ton of people because I just moved here not too long ago, very connected, but most people are really overwhelmed, like, trying to figure out what's best for my kid. I know for Jack, he's not sitting in front of a computer for more than like 8 minutes. It's just not happening right now. So that's where we were, and I had the ability to homeschool. But if I was, still working in a school, that would be it's so hard to figure out what works best. And have you been connecting with other parents at all? Do you feel like that helps, or does that kind of escalate the anxiety?
No. So I have been connecting with other parents, and I want to go back to what you said, how they seem confident. I agree. Like, they seem confident. So it makes you kind of question. I know that you never know what's going on behind with closed doors and what they're really feeling for them. But I do have a group of friends and parents that, like, we can talk openly and be like, no, I don't have this. Yeah. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know how to do day by day. I know when we started homeschooling, there were tears every day, like virtual, not homeschooling. And honestly, sometimes it was me, and I just had to walk away, and just like this mascara running down my face. And you go and you look on social media, which I know we can talk about a little bit, and then you got this parent who's like, oh, the kids are here doing their schoolwork, and you're just like, what the?
Baking biscuits and drinking lemonade and letting the dog out, and everything's perfect. And the lawn has been mowed 3 times this week.
And we did our 8 science experiment, like, we haven't even done 2 math problems.
But it's, you know what, and I'm going to hit you there, because I've seriously, true confessions of the goodness chick, I've really cried a lot in the past few months as a parent, where I want to do better. I want to be more patient. This morning, trying to get my kid, trying to get Jack where we're doing like writing, right? Writing is the bane of my existence with my 5-year-old. I have to go, I went out in the backyard, and I let the dog out. I just needed 37 seconds to like have a sip of coffee. And this is where meeting yourself emotionally with what you can do, and knowing you're going to cry, you're going to snap, you're going to have moments that you're overwhelmed. But this is where as my son's walking in right now, and we had our timer set. What's up?
I'm gonna
tell me something.
Papa Pig is here.
Okay, go and see if Papa Pig's here, and then I need you to go jam. Okay, is that cool?
Okay.
Good job. All right, see, here we are. Because here's the deal, children that hear us or don't hear us, we can't plan everything, right? And this is one of the things I am really kind of submitting to, or whatever the heck the right word is, where it's like, you know what, I can't control everything. I had a podcast thing I was on the other day, and it was going awesome. And at the very last 6-7 minutes of it, my son walked in. Like, things happen. And this is what I'm going to do, a shout out to all parents and teachers, knowing you cannot be perfect. Allow yourself to not get on social media so much where you're looking at these inaccurate perfections of people. Nobody, you know what? I actually did a post today about our podcast, and it was like just a few pictures of me and about 60 seconds of different facial expressions I had. And it's like things are really hard, and giving us credit to know that it's going to be hard. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think you need to find a tribe. I think you need to find a group of people that don't have that facade of like, everything's going great, virtual's great, COVID's great, we're working. Like you said, like our lawn is mowed, we got a new puppy. You need people who are going to break down with you and be like, yeah, I don't know either. So you know that you're like not alone. And And then from there, you can build up ideas and you help each other out. With this whole school thing, I'm like, if I have to go back 5 days a week, I don't have anybody to watch my kids, like, before they go to school. And then I found my tribe, and they're like, well, we can do this day, you can do that day. I'm like, great, I can pick them up after school. I think it's really important to connect to people who you can relate to and who you can trust with your emotions.
It's so hard. It is so hard. And it's like learning to figure out what emotionally we need as human beings right now to succeed or to be healthy. Like, I'm finding myself, I don't know about you, where I have to look at it day by day, because if I think this is going to be for the whole school year, actually it is for me because I'm homeschooling, but all of this stuff, like my husband goes in the morning, like they start school, the teacher's already in, but they start school next week. And I know he's anxious. Yeah, I'm anxious for him. And so it's like this domino effect, that could be really overwhelming.
Yeah, my husband has to go to work every day too, and it is. And I used to think I was type B, like, oh, well, just like whatever happens. And then I realized I am type A, and I'm having a hard time that I can't control things.
Yeah,
I am having a hard time.
I think we're a lot alike. I was going to say Ham/Collins. I'm always like, I'm super laid back, right? I'm super chill. This has been very trying, where I'm like, I'm nervous about my husband going, back to school. I'm like, how come we can't control all this? Well, we can't control this. And this is where it's waking up in the morning and reminding yourself, I'm not in control. For me, within my faith, God's in control. I don't understand this. I can't ask a bazillion questions. I'm just going to take one day at a time, because when we think we can control it, I believe that's kind of part of the core of us having some serious anxiety, because then we fail, we fall short.
Right, no, I agree. Excuse me. I don't think I can control, I realize I can't control it, but it's just the monotony too of day to day, where I feel like we're like this too, where like we want to up and go do things, and now it's just like, oh, we can't do that, we can't do this, we can't go to the zoo.
Yeah.
Like, we have to cancel our vacations. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot to try to not, you can't control it, but try to understand that you can't control it.
Right. But you had mentioned that I think is very critical right now for anybody that's listening, having a tribe, and having a tribe that supports you and doesn't put things in your ear where it becomes a toxic tribe, which I think right now a lot of people are struggling with, because it's easy to be like, this stinks. Whether you're a teacher, you're a parent, I can't believe we're going through this again. I thought this would be over. Well, it's not. And so if we allow things to fester, are you particular, and I know you are, about your tribe? Who's in that tribe?
It takes me a long time to actually open up to somebody and trust them. So it's not like anybody's in. But I also think you said, like, having people, they don't even need to be on my same wavelength. Like, my tribe consists of people who are completely different than me, different religion, different political views. But part of that too, like when you said, like, it's the anxiety, our culture of our country right now is so divisive that on top of COVID, you have all of this divisiveness with the politician, with different movements. Like, it's just breaking people apart. And I think that anxiety is being compounded on with everything that's going on. Yeah. And so I think it's important to have people that aren't exactly like you, so you can be like, tell me what is this about? Like, what is going on?
But still uplifting one another. I do find that, that it's like, and kindness. And, one of the things that I found myself trying to kind of back off a little bit in what I read on social media, because I found, like, over the past year, you have so many people, I don't want to say hiding behind screens, but saying things and responding that I'm just shocked, like, where there's this anger and anger can be a normal, healthy emotion, but how it's being conveyed in a very bitter anger, a very, like, raging anger.
I think it's important when you do that, because sometimes I find myself and I get engaged and I'm like, I think before I hit send, I'm like, would I say this to that person's face? And if I wouldn't, I delete it. And if I would, I'll hit send. Mm-hmm. I think that's important. Like, people do hide behind the keyboards. Like, they're almost anonymous. Yeah. But I think it's important that if you wouldn't say it to somebody, that you shouldn't send it on the computer.
And it's something that, think about when we're, in the classroom, that we would remind our kids of, like how they, we're anxious. And this is what, kind of want to hit on a little bit, if we're anxious as adults, our kids are anxious. Our kids are anxious, whether, they're voicing it or they're not. We have a lot of kids. And I go back to the times that we really tag team together with some kids who had some really tough home lives. I think of these kids who want to go back to school. I just want to be back. I want to be out of my house. I'm not eating properly because dad lost his job, or my brother is using drugs again, and I'm dealing with that and yelling and the stress. And this is not ideal for a whole lot of people. And you have so many people stressed.
It's important that you have to remind yourself that not everybody lives like I do or like you do. So me being home is not a big deal. We have the resources, like we have that. And then you stop and you think, like, there's kids who don't have enough to eat, who are being abused, who have nowhere to go, who don't have a house.
Yeah.
And and then you're torn. You're like, yes, we all need to get back to school. But at what expense? Like, it's just a really hard topic to navigate.
And figure out, I'm very grateful I'm not in charge of that. And kind of putting it out there for those who might be frustrated with what's going on in terms of the educational end of it. The teachers are not the ones making these decisions. The teachers, right? But there's people that are like, the teachers are this, that you're saying that are absolutely ludicrous and have no base to it, and just add to this ball of negativity that is just divisive right now.
Very divisive. And I'm not one to talk about things that I don't, I'm not going to preach to somebody on something that I don't know about. And I feel like everybody thinks that they are like what? I can't even think of the word.
Like super, that they're, that's they're a connoisseur of, COVID or public education. Yeah.
Right.
And it's, and you guys just want to be back in school.
I love to be back in school. I want to meet my students. I want to be able to talk to them face to face. Even though I picked the hybrid, which I'm happy that if they let me, that I can go in a couple days. Like, those virtual days are hard. They're hard.
Yeah.
And they're hard on students, and like the motivation just isn't there. You don't get to make it. That's what it is. You don't get to make that connection. And so even if you have a student who might not want to learn, if you can make a connection with them, they're going to do something. Yeah. They're going to try to do something for you or for themselves. And I think with the virtual, it's going to be hard to make those connections.
It's so hard. I think, in terms of you guys have so much on your shoulders right now. And I do think people are like picking sides, and this isn't about sides. It's just about humanity. It makes me sad with what I see going on in social media, people talking and getting, like, this isn't what our country's about, in my opinion.
No, there's a lot of stuff that's going on that, like, you question, and you look at the history and you're like, this is not what people fought for and died for. And like, this is not where I'm actually nervous and anxious. So I like the COVID stuff and the kids. Obviously I have anxiety about that. Where we're headed as a country, I know this is a totally different topic, is extremely scary to me. And it makes me anxious, very anxious, more than kind of what's going on right now.
Well, it's scary. And I found myself watching less news. It's not about being ignorant, but it's so polarizing. And I feel like it's this flame of just, people are so unhappy, and there's issues, and there's hurt, and there's so much, but I feel like there's people who are just kind of throwing in the towel.
I know, and I don't want to be that person, but you're like, I'm the same thing. Like, I haven't really watched the news, and it's because it doesn't matter what news you watch, there's some kind of agenda.
Yeah.
And it's just like, here's my towel for listening to you guys. Like, it's scary. And it goes back with the COVID thing. Like, one side is like, oh, like, there's this theory about it, and the other side's like, no, this is what happened. And it's just like, oh.
Yeah.
And that adds the anxiety of the unknown. You don't know who to trust, what to believe. So.
Well, and that's the thing, right? I mean, and I'm certainly not a science person, but like what to believe and what to know. And this is where, I say, like, where I say to people right now, just you need to do when it comes to decision making, what is the healthiest thing for your kids? What is best in terms of for your mindset? So like, I think of you, right, as an educator, which is crazytrain.com right now, and as a parent, right, and as a wife and as a citizen, this is where I know with all my heart right now, self-care, which people are like, that's crazy. I don't have time for that right now. Like, are you insane? But is so important, because I know if I'm not taking time, even if that's like 4.7 minutes or 30 seconds to do something to breathe a little bit lighter and to feel a little less crazy, I am not going to be as effective as that's, I'm teaching my kid, or as, being supportive for my husband with what he's facing right now, my business from home with Goodness Chick. Like the pieces are all connected, because it's got to be. I mean, do you find that with yourself, like little infusions of goodness or self-care, if you will? Is that something you incorporate?
I try to, and on the days that I don't, I snap way faster than I would on, even if I just go outside and just take 10 minutes to breathe.
Is that Jules?
Even if I go take 10 minutes to breathe, or go for a bike ride. But on the days that I don't, and there are some days, Erin, that you just don't have time. Like,
Right.
I don't. It's funny because I have all the time in the world, and I have no time in the world.
Right.
It's just like I'm running out of time. So on the days that I don't, I find myself snapping. I'm way more irritable. Everybody's in a bad mood because I set the tone. So I think it's super important to do self-care, even if like you just walk outside and breathe for 10 minutes without somebody following you.
Are you there? Are you there? Are you there?
Yeah. Or mom, where are you? And I'm like,
I'm right here.
Like I'm always here. I think self-care is super important, and I know every day I don't have time to do it. I mean, you just don't sometimes.
You just don't sometimes. You don't. But what I found some of my self-care is like even just having a really good cup of coffee in the morning, right? And I'm just breathing for 10 seconds, or it is so hard to happen every single day. And with all this, it's so hard. It's harder. But I do know that it's so important. But what I think part of that self-care is, kind of bringing it back to your tribe thing, I'm going to wrap things up a little bit, but who we hang out with, who we get information from in terms of the negative, not like what information we're getting, but is it negative? Is it positive? Is it encouraging? And this is where also the aspect of kindness that I talk a whole lot about is so, so important when you're on social media. Like you had said, I'm thinking about, would I say this in front of this person before I post it? Would I say this about somebody to someone else if they were in front of me? There's a lot of kindness lacking right now with things. Like, so there's just a lot of heaviness and a lot of negativity, and being unkind, just that in itself has a domino effect.
I just see overall, it's just like, even when you go out, I think people are so pent up and have so much anxiety that they aren't being kind.
Yeah.
They're just ready to explode. And I think if you take a step back and if you just take a step back and have some empathy that everybody doesn't do it your way. People believe different things, and as long as it's like not directly affecting your well-being or your health, you kind of just gotta breathe and be like, all right, that's them. Like, I feel like we have so much power, we gotta still let some go. Like, just let it out.
Well, and it's respecting one another. Wouldn't you say that? Like, I respect that you made this decision to do this, or I'm.
Yeah, and I think we're lacking respect. I mean, I hate to keep doing this here and bringing it back to our climate and our country, but we lack respect.
Yeah.
Like, all the stuff's going on, we just lack respect. We lack empathy. We lack understanding. And then you have people who try to see it from another point of view, and then people who are just like, no, like, this is it. This is how.
Well, it's my way or the highway. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kindness. Yeah, kindness goes a long way. I think these are trying times, especially people, if you're out of job, like you're out of a job, you don't have food, like it's hard to see kindness and to be kind. So I think you need people around you to remind you, like, hey, knock it off. Like, you're going off this end, we need you back over here. So your tribe is not just anybody that talks to you. You got, like, it's people that you trust with your emotions.
It's important.
And your views, and respect you. So.
Yeah. And I also think it's keeping things in perspective too, because I think sometimes we can get caught up in our own stuff, which is really easy to do.
Right.
But then, I take a step back and think of all these kids that do, again, want to be in school, can't grasp everything that's going on, but can grasp what's going on in their home, and, are being, verbally abused, physically abused, aren't eating, and all these things that sometimes we don't realize before we speak, how many people are hurting, are struggling. They have somebody at home that's struggling with an addiction or has a mental illness, and because maybe they've got their job has been cut, they can't get the services that they need. Like, this ripple effect of what's going on is years and years coming of what we're going to be seeing.
Oh yeah, this is just like the beginning of it.
Yeah.
I know when you said get out of your own bubble, they're in the Lenape district where I work. They're doing like food for families that might need help with food, and so I offered to help Grace with delivering some of the food. And yeah, we live in a district where there's money, and then I go deliver this food, and I'm like, oh, I forgot. Like, you don't think about that there's kids that live different than what you're used to, and I think that's super important. And you have to realize that everybody doesn't live like you, and everybody doesn't have what you have, and yes, they have major problems. And
that's everywhere. Like, I'm in Vero, and you could go on the beach, and there's seriously $10 million homes, right? There's $1 million homes, and you drive 10 minutes, and then there's people that don't have electricity, right? Or you'd even, is it really something that is habitable kind of thing? That is everywhere, right? To different extremes, obviously, but it's
right.
Like, we can get caught up in our bubble. When we're in our bubble and we're caught in that bubble, I do think self-pity comes in more prevalently. We kind of get a little self-consumed. And when we step out, and this is one of the things, like, I love where I'm at right now in life, big time, but I miss having that connection where you guys hop in a car and you go drop food off to a kid, and the beautiful domino effect of just goodness, of just humanity. Let's help each other, dude. We have so many hurting people, and letting them know that they're cared about and loved is massive, I miss you and Grace, all the good, the good stuff of, like, undercover goodness. There's so many educators, but so many educators doing undercover goodness, right? Because you see,
there are, and you'll never know it.
You'll never know it. And that's what makes me crazy when I see things about teachers. And there's bad teachers, just like there's bad bakers and bad pizza makers and bad plumbers, right? But there's so many good educators that are on the lines and tired. And so this is what I'm going to say as we wrap up. I'm saying this again, like, encourage an educator, taking some time to kick an email or a text or whatever, like, thank you, right? And you don't need to write the story of your life, but just thanking them, because these guys are on the front lines. They're dealing with a whole lot of stuff. And, as parents, I think it's encouraging one another and getting outside of our bubble. And Renee, I want to say thank you for being on today's episode, for being awesome.
Thanks, Erin.
Because you're rad and amazing. And, I am keeping all of you guys in my prayers daily, because this is big stuff. And for us to just keep encouraging each other and being kind. And for those of you that are tuning in today, because that's why you're here, I'm wishing you an abundance of peace, love, and goodness, my friends. If you enjoyed today's episode, there's a lot more encouragement and life-kicking strategies on goodnesschick.com. Have a great day, my friends.